Okay. Let's get started with this first story here coming out about Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but a couple of days ago, or actually a week or two ago, I told you that Vivek Ramaswamy actually had surged in the polls right before that GOP primary debate. That is now the opposite. Vivek Ramaswamy is actually tanking in the polls. Now, what's interesting about this is I told you I thought that he won the GOP primary debate, in my opinion. But the donors said that, of course, they thought Ron DeSantis won because that's who most of the donors are backing. Recently, Vivek Ramaswamy decided to tell everyone about his economic policy, his 5-point plan. And one of the things that people have been very critical about is this plan that he has to lay off federal employees. I want to get started with the clip here from his interview on Fox Business, and then we're going to go into an article here to show you a little bit more about that plan and should you be concerned. Or is Vivek going anywhere in reference to this primary at all? Let's get into it.
All right, joining us now, tell us how he plans to destroy the swamp. A noble mission if there ever was one. Vivek Ramaswamy, 2024 GOP presidential candidate, co-founder of Strive Asset Management, author of Nation of Victims, Identity Politics, The Death of Merit, The Path Back to Excellence. Vivek, welcome back. You spoke to the America First Policy Institute today, if I'm not wrong, and you're outlining how to destroy the swamp. And I thought you'd share some of that vision with us because it's a noble cause if there ever was one.
Before he chimes in here, I just want to say something. I don't understand why you're running to be like Donald Trump. Like, to me, that doesn't make any sense. Remember, Donald Trump had that same rhetoric. We're going to destroy the swamp, although he basically gave like these billionaires and millionaires more tax breaks and things like that. We're going to destroy that swamp. So when Vivek, like when he first announced that he was running and he said that he thought Donald Trump was the best president of his generation and he did really great things. Again, I continue to ask the question, then why are you running? You have to be yourself. You have to have your own lane. But it seems like to me, he's just basically trying to be Donald Trump 2.0, right? So let's hear what he has to say about draining the swamp.
Thank you, Larry. I'm giving a sneak preview of the speech that I'll be delivering tomorrow morning at AFBI.
It's tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry.
Here's the main thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's tomorrow morning, but we know it's a topic of passion for you, so I was looking forward to this conversation as well. The thing that the advisor class, the managerial class, has told presidents from Reagan to Trump is that you can't shut down agencies as the U.S. president. You cannot fire large numbers of federal employees, that you can't rescind federal regulations without asking Congress for permission. It turns out, Larry, if you read the law carefully, the U.S. president absolutely can. And that's what I'm going to lay out tomorrow, laying out a plan for reducing the size of the federal employee headcount by over 75%, 50% by the end of my first year in office. Also shutting down 5 government agencies. Those are the first 5 of many more to come, which we'll lay out in great painstaking detail. And also rescinding a majority of federal regulations, which I view as unconstitutional, pursuant to the standard laid out by the U.S. Supreme Court in West Virginia versus EPA last year. This will be a seismic shock to the system, Larry. Once again, restoring 3 branches of government as our founding fathers envisioned, shutting down the 4th branch of government, this unconstitutional shadow government in the administrative state. And I think.
So he's talking about like the CIA, the FBI, those shadow governments. That's what he's referring to.
I am the presidential candidate who's going to have offered probably the greatest level of detail on how to actually get that job done. And then we're going to get in there after the 2024 election and actually do it.
You know, Vivek, again, all noble causes. My pal Russ Vogt, OMB director, and Steve Miller, senior advisor, you know, they worked on Schedule F right at the end of the Trump administration, ran out of time. So I'm assuming you're going to go back there because the idea you can take out large numbers of civil servants, et cetera. You just can't take one out. I think that was the hang. We were going to try to take out large, you know, like the Department of Education, or at least carve it up and get rid of large chunk of it. So I know, sneak preview, I happen to be the vice chair of the FBI, so you could sneak preview me.
Somebody please tell me, when I first listened to this, like, is he slurring his words, like the host? Because when I first watched this, I was like, is he a little tipsy or something? Or it kind of sounds like he's slurring his words a little bit.
Give me a little more detail. Put a little meat on the bones for me.
That's good. Yeah. And I like to go into detail on these issues because it matters. So the Schedule F exceptions, I think, were a great step in the right direction. What that means is there's certain categories that you all, I think, were working on to say that there's certain federal employees who are in policy-making roles that the U.S. president can fire. Well, expand that to say more employees fit that function, to say you could fire slightly more employees. And I think that's a step in the right direction. What I'm laying out tomorrow is a fundamentally different approach. Not going through the back door of Schedule F, but through the front door of reading the statutes, which say that you can't fire individual civil servants, but what they call in the law large reductions in force, mass layoffs, those aren't included in the civil service protections. And mass layoffs are absolutely what I'm bringing to Washington, D.C.
So what he's saying is, and he already gave that speech, by the way. I was going to play it on here, but honestly, it's kind of, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of boring. I'm just keeping it real. Like, he goes up to like a little easel and flips charts and turns pages. And I was like, they really not going to want to see that tonight. But the thing is, like, you can watch the full speech on YouTube if you look it up. But the thing is this basically what he's saying is he can actually do, as president of the United States, he can do mass layoffs. And he's considering doing that with those government agencies like the FBI, like the CIA. He also said the Department of Education is another one that he feels should not be there. What's really interesting, though, is this is where I start to see some type of mirror between him and RFK Jr., so to speak, because RFK Jr. wants to either reform or dismantle the CIA. I think he landed on dismantle the CIA, that kind of thing. And I feel like as a candidate, you really have to have your own lane. Like, what is unique about you? What are you running on? What is your key, initiative, your key thing? And I feel like Vivek is basically just a younger Donald Trump who wants to get rid of these government agencies. So it's like you have like this blur a little bit with RFK Jr. and then a little bit with Donald Trump. And it's just, I don't know. Like I said, he's declined significantly in the polls. I'll show you that in just a second, because I think that should be a warning sign to him, so to speak.
The other thing is there are unexpired provisions of the 1977 Presidential Reorganization Act that say under limited circumstances, if it's to stimulate the economy, if it's to promote efficiency in operations, if it's to reduce redundant agencies, then the U.S. president already has statutory authority to shut down and reorganize agencies. That's what I'm going to use for the FBI, for the ATF, for the U.S. Department of Education, for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and other agencies. And what we're going to do tomorrow, Larry, is go into detail. Say those 35,000 employees at the FBI, well, you know what? 20,000 of them are back office bureaucrats. They can go home and find honest work in the private sector. The 15,000 agents on the front line, we will reorganize them and move them to the U.S. Marshals or to the...
See, that's the part that I wanted you guys to hear, because when people say he wants to, dismantle the FBI, the employees that he's talking about removing are the ones that do more of the administrative labor, right? When it comes to the field agents, the ones that are actually on the ground, he still wants to keep that in place, but he wants to transfer them to the U.S. Marshals. So I want you to understand what he means. Like, he's not trying to completely get rid of these agencies. He still wants to keep that type of power in place, but he wants to make transitions there. So I think that's important for people to understand. But this guy, the host, is cracking me up. I can't.
Financial crimes enforcement network at the U.S. Treasury, or for that matter, to the DEA on the front lines of the fentanyl epidemic across this country. That is how we at once increase effectiveness while also restoring the integrity of our constitutional republic. And by the way, stimulating our economy. Keep in mind, the administrative state is the fountainhead of that wet blanket of regulations that suppresses the U.S. economy. This is the top of my domestic policy priority agenda. And Larry, as you can hopefully tell, for me, these aren't just talking points. This is a vision of what we're actually going to get in there and do, not incrementally reform and tinker around the edges. We're going to get in there and shut it down. That's why I'm running for president. I think we're going to succeed.
All right. A noble cause.
I'm sorry, but the host is cracking me up. The host is just like, okay, can I take a nap now? Like, he is not with it. Now, I want to bring up this article here from AP because I want to show you a little bit more detail here. Vivek Ramaswamy proposes mass federal layoffs as more GOP hopefuls look to slash U.S. government. This is one of the, when I was talking about the easel, this is one of the sheets that he tore off, the myth that the president of the U.S. does not have powers to reorganize or shut down federal agencies. So I just wanted to show you that part really quick. But this piece here, it says Ramaswamy's proposals are among the broadest in the field. Speaking at the America First Policy Institute in Washington, he said he would try to reduce the federal employee headcount by half in his first year in office and by 75% his first term if he makes it to the White House. He wants to shut down 5 federal agencies: the FBI, the Department of Education. That includes those. He also said he would eliminate Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive, and the Food and Nutrition Service. The people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government. So again, he's alluding to, the fact that the FBI is basically determining what's happening with the government. They're actually the ones that are telling them what to do. Attempting a purge of that size would immediately lead to a huge pushback from federal employees who have civil service protections, interest groups, and lawmakers of both parties who support the work of some of all of those agencies. While in office, Trump often railed against what he saw as a deep state of bureaucrats working against his administration priorities, but he did not carry out firings of rank and file employees. So that's important for people to know. Now, I will say this. When he announced this, I saw some rumblings on social media where people were saying, is he crazy? There's no way he's going to win. I don't think he's going to win anyway. But the reason why I think he feels bold about saying this, and he can do so without any type of fear, is because if you think about the Electoral College, he's not going to win the states that a lot of people that work in DC in those federal offices, deal with anyway. So think about it. If you're working in DC, you either live in DC or Maryland or Virginia. I got family in Maryland. I got family in Virginia. They all make that commute, right? He's not going to win those states anyway. The Republican candidate is not going to win Maryland. The Republican candidate, for the most part, is most likely not going to win Virginia. And we know DC stays blue. So that's probably why he's so bold about it. Now, I say that, but at the same time, Vivek Ramaswamy is tanking in the polls. Now, the 2024 National Republican primary, this is the shift from August 29th. Trump is at 55%. Of course, he's still on the top there. DeSantis at 16%. Look at the gap. What's significant is that gap between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. That's crazy. Nikki Haley is at 6%, and Vivek Ramaswamy is now down to 6%. Remember, before the GOP primaries, Vivek Ramaswamy, the highest, was already in the 20s. And I predicted that he would pass Ron DeSantis if he kept things up. But something happened. After that primary debate, he just started to decrease in the polls. And little by little, 1 week he was in the 20s, then he started going down to the teens, and now he's at 6%. And this is the YouGov America / The Economist poll. But it's like this pretty much across the board. So it's interesting. He has these plans. He's probably doing more interviews than any of the other GOP candidates so far from what I've seen. So he's getting a lot of press. But he's tanking in the polls. So I don't know. But it seems like Republican voters are not feeling him anymore. JB says Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign cannonball splash. He dropped off real quick, right? He was the hot ticket for a while, and then all of a sudden he just dropped off. Like he could increase again, but that was this significant drop. So I don't know. I don't think Republican voters are feeling him so much. Again, they're probably saying, well, he sounds like Trump, so they're probably just going to vote for Trump. I don't know.